She asked me, "But how?" Becky, I hear people all the time talk about the importance of having a routine and a schedule for homeschooling. But so many of us have no idea what that means because we've never been taught how to establish a routine. Do you have anything that will help us? And I do. By the end of this video, we're going to have talked through the steps that it takes to establish a routine at home. It's slow, okay? It's not a fast button. It's going to take the next couple weeks, but it is possible for you to start where you are today and to end up with a routine at the end. But then I also have something for you, so I hope that you stay till the end and then I'll let you know what it is. So let's talk about how to create a routine. This is such an important part of homeschool because without a predictable flow to your day, chaos will completely and totally take over. So, the very first step is I want you to take a day or two to just dream about what you want your day to feel like. This is so important because, at an emotional level, you need to identify what is it you want in your homeschool day. For instance, when I think about a typical homeschool day, what I want my day to feel like is predictable, peaceable, filled with joy, where I know what my kids are doing and the purpose behind everything that we are doing in our day. Plus, I also know how the household things are going to be completed, not just the academic stuff. So, the very first thing that you need is to take a day or two to think about the scaffolding, which is the framework of what are the parts and pieces of your life. And this is different for every single one of us. But the basics are what kind of meals are you making and serving at home? What types of activities does your family participate in right now that are needs or top priorities? And what types of things do you want your kids to do throughout the day? So this might look like meal time, rest time, some academic slash homeschool time, household chores, errands, clubs, sports, etc. So take a day or two and just identify those big pieces. What are the parts that group together to actually create your life? And then start to play with a timeline where you start with early in the morning, you get up, and then by the end of the day, you go to sleep. But how do these parts and pieces go together? It typically would start with something like breakfast and then move through an order of events through the day. So create a penciled timeline of what a typical day should include. And then you're not implementing your routine yet. Once you've identified the parts and pieces of what you want your typical day to be like, spend the next few days walking through, but imagining that you're doing those things. So no matter whether or not it's chaotic or peaceful, in at the breakfast hour, you're thinking, this is the perfect time for me to serve breakfast. Or, gosh, if it was a little bit earlier, maybe I could have the kids be independent with serving breakfast. And then when you move to the next hour in the day, you can think, okay, in this block of time, this actually would work for read aloud time. So you're just mentally walking through the day. And then after you've taken, so you're at least a week into the process where you've dreamt about your life and what you want it to feel like. You've identified the different parts and pieces that would piece together your schedule. You're going to create a penciled in timeline and you're going to mentally walk through it. And now it's time for you to implement your new routine. But I'm going to encourage you to do it one piece at a time. Ideally, you would start with bedtime. Get the bedtime routine under control for your children so that after dinner, you go through a very predictable rhythm and routine so that your children go to bed at a decent time. You are the one that decides when that is and how that works for your family, but piece that together and start getting your bedtime routine under control. And then once you have that under control, start with the early part of the day where your children wake up at a given time in the day and start implementing and training in the breakfast and the activity that follows breakfast routine. And over the course of the next 2 weeks, or as long as it takes, you practice and perfect each part of your routine one piece at a time. Don't try to do it all. And the way that this works is through role playing. So you're ready to implement your routine. You've gone through the time and the practice of dreaming through what you want your day to actually look like. And you've created the blocks and pieces of the activities that your family goes through. Depending on how many kids you have and the different ages and stages, you might have more blocks or pieces to move around. Some of us have schedules that are rinse and repeat 7 days a week. But some of you may have really busy days out of the week where you'll have to not just think about it on a day by day basis, but some of your days will have rinse repeat patterns from week to week. For instance, you may have a sport that your kids are involved in, and that capitalizes every Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday afternoon. So that would be a piece of your block to move around. And when you have a big chunk in your routine, it needs to take the place of another chunk. It should not be placed on top, because our goal is to create a peaceful home and a peaceful routine for our family so that they can thrive. So you've gone through that whole process of dreaming and scaffolding and creating a timeline. When it's time to actually start implementing, you've already gone through the mental practice, right? Of the day is going on as normal, but you're thinking through it. Okay, at 3 o'clock, this is the time that I would want to be running errands and to get that part of my day under control. At 5 o'clock, that would be my dinner prep time. And by 6 o'clock, we're eating as a family. You're just mentally walking through it. When you're ready to step into your new routine, you will identify one part of your day to focus on. And what you do is you have a little role playing session with your kids. Say the first part that you're going to fix is the bedtime routine. So after breakfast in the morning, you gather the kids around in the living room and you say, we're going to start a new bedtime routine. And I thought it would be fun if we practiced. And then you're going to go through and you're going to practice for 2 or 3 days for 5 minutes in the morning what bedtime routine looks like. So starting right there in the living room, you're going to have the kids, okay, sit on the sofa. We will have just finished whatever your family does. If it's TV family time, if it's story time, if it's bath time, whatever it is. We just finished this, and now it'll be time for mom or dad to say, okay, it's time for bed. And what are we going to do? We go back to the bedroom, we sit on the bed, we read a story, and then I tuck you in. Could do whatever your bedtime routine is. I always sang to my kids before they went to bed. And then we blew out the light, where I'd hold the light, okay, 1, 2, 3, and we'd blow out the light. And you would practice for 2 or 3 days. By the 3rd day, when they know the routine, you practice in the morning and you say, okay, starting tonight, we're going to start our new bedtime routine. Everybody ready? Great. The power of establishing a routine is not found in printing a schedule, but the power is actually found when you practice the different pieces of the routine for a few days. Then you give the kids warning that this is going into action starting tonight, and you have already pre-thought, what do you do when the kids resist this piece of the day? It takes planning, it takes practice, and that role playing with your kids is the secret sauce to going from a routine that's completely out of control into this flow and rhythm it's beautiful, it's peaceful. And then now you're ready to run your routine. And your job from the rest of your homeschool career, your parenting career, is to pay attention. When you see a period in your day that's not working, and it's not just a fluke of a day, but every day at 2 o'clock, the kids fill in the blank. Then do the same thing. Step back. What do I want this part of the day to feel like? What are the activities that need to be in this part of the day? How can I orchestrate this so that there's a transition into this part of the day? And then what do I expect from the kids? And then how is right, you plan this. Then you practice it for a couple days and then you release the kids into the new routine. Now I know what you're thinking. This is a lot of work. It is. It is. You want to be a parent that nails this, that has a beautiful routine. It takes effort. By the time you get to your kids graduating from high school and flying into their future, the people that are telling you, wow, you're so lucky that your kids are so good, won't know what you and I know. And that is that you will have invested your heart and soul into raising up those kids in the way they should go. A routine is the foundation. It's the very base layer that you are going to build everything else upon: character, homeschool agendas, learning benchmarks, activities. If you don't have a routine, then life spins out of control very quickly. It'll be 6 o'clock at night and you won't have anything to serve for dinner. It'll be 11 o'clock in the morning and the kids will be all over the place and resisting any kind of learning opportunity that you put in front of them. Whereas instead, if you have a rhythm, one of the most beautiful examples that I had to witness when one of my kids was little, he was in daycare. It's actually our oldest. And when I would bring him to daycare, because I had not been blessed enough to come home yet, the granny daycare provider greeted the kids, and she was always making breakfast because that was part of her daycare. And she had this low table. The house was very quiet, and she always had a bin or two of educational type things on the table for the kids to explore while she was finishing breakfast. And it would be a bin of puzzles. It might be a bin of train tracks or Play-Doh or lacing beads, or just fill in the blank. She decided these are the things I want the kids to look at right before breakfast every single day. And when breakfast was done, they would put the things back in the bin. The bins would go up, they would eat breakfast, and they'd go to the next thing. And I watched this day after day after day. The kids never complained about what was on the table. They just would quietly go up and they would play with the things. When breakfast time, it was revolutionary to me as a young mom. And these types of things you can add into your toolkit so that you can build a routine that is peaceful and calm. It will take effort, and it will, for me, produce a life that I found pretty boring. It's pretty boring to run a rinse repeat schedule, but your kids will thrive in an environment where they know what to expect. So build a routine that works for you, for your children, for your family, and the season of life that you're in. And take the time to practice and role play, and the years that you have in front of you of peaceful, joyful life that you can then build education upon is priceless.